The screen opens not with explosions or gunfire, but with the rhythmic clang of steel on steel that a dimly lit, Spartan gym reveals a figure moving with practiced precision, Jason Statham. Though the lines on his face tell a story of hard-won battles and battles lost, he's not just lifting weights. He's honing a weapon, himself. This isn't about vanity. It's about survival, about being the edge his team needs. That we see glimpses of his routine, brutal pull-ups, explosive kettlebell swings, and intricate knife drills performed with balletic grace and lethal intent. It's a silent testament to years spent pushing his body and mind to their absolute limits. This isn't just an introduction to a character. It's an introduction to a philosophy. That Statham's character, Rick Tanner, lives by a code forged in the crucible of countless operations gone sideways. He's a ghost, operating in the shadows, taking on the missions no one else will touch. He carries the weight of past failures, the faces of those he couldn't save etched into his memory. These ghosts fuel his relentless drive, his unwavering commitment to bringing everyone home. The gym door creaks open, breaking the rhythm. It's Sarah, Tanner's second-in-command. She's the brains of the operation, a master strategist with an uncanny ability to anticipate enemy movements. Her cool demeanor and sharp intellect perfectly complement Tanner's raw physicality. They exchange a look, a silent language built on years of shared experiences and mutual respect. No words are needed. She knows why he's here, and he knows she wouldn't interrupt unless it was crucial. He's here, she says, her voice low and serious. They want you for something big. The scene shifts to a nondescript warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Inside, gathered around a worn table littered with maps and satellite images, are the other members of Tanner's team. There's Marcus, the demolitions expert, a gentle giant with a knack for blowing things up with surgical precision. Chloe, the tech wizard, can hack into any system and disappear without a trace. And Ben, the grizzled veteran sniper, a master of stealth and long-range engagement. But they're a motley crew, each with their own unique skills and quirks. But they're bound together by a shared loyalty to Tanner and a deep understanding of the risks they faced. They've seen things, done things, that would haunt most people's nightmares. But they keep going, driven by a sense of duty and a belief in the importance of their work. The atmosphere is tense. A palpable sense of unease hangs in the air. They know that when Tanner gets called in for a big job, it's never good news. That IT means danger, sacrifice, and the very real possibility that they won't all be coming back. They exchange nervous glances, knowing that their lives are about to be thrown into the grinder once again. The team is ready, and their leader approaches. Tanner steps into the warehouse, his presence instantly commanding attention. The scattered conversations cease, replaced by a focused anticipation that he moves to the head of the table, his gaze sweeping over each member of his team, acknowledging their individual strengths and unspoken anxieties. He knows they're the best, but even the best have their breaking points. The client arrives, escorted by two figures in dark suits who position themselves silently by the door, radiating an aura of authority and concealed weaponry. The client is Mr. Hayes, a man who wears expensive suits as armor, his face etched with worry and desperation barely concealed beneath a veneer of corporate composure. He carries himself with the stiff formality of someone accustomed to giving orders, not begging for help, but the tremor in his voice betrays his fear. Hayes clears his throat, placing a file on the table. "Gentlemen, ladies," he begins, his voice strained. "I represent certain interests who require your unique skill set." He avoids eye contact, focusing on the file as if it holds the answers to all his problems. He opens the file, revealing a series of photographs, grainy satellite images, surveillance shots of a sprawling compound, and close-ups of individuals held captive. These people, Hayes says, finally meeting Tanner's gaze, are being held in a region controlled by a warlord named Cassard. He's unpredictable, brutal. The authorities are unable to intervene. Chloe leans forward, zooming in on one of the satellite images on a tablet. Cassard's territory, no man's land, border region, heavily fortified, and no official government presence. Hayes nods grimly. Precisely. Any direct intervention would be problematic, which is why we need a discreet solution. An extraction. Marcus raises an eyebrow. Discreet? Looks more like a hornet's nest. These hostages, Hayes continues, ignoring Marcus's comment, are vital. Their knowledge, their skills, are crucial to national security. He pauses, taking a deep breath. Among them is Dr. Eris Thorne, a leading expert in. He hesitates, then continues, advanced bioengineering. His work is invaluable and highly sensitive. Ben, the sniper, speaks for the first time, his voice gravelly. And if we fail? Hayes' face pales. Failure, he says, his voice barely a whisper, is not an option. These people cannot fall into the wrong hands. Their knowledge is too dangerous. He looks directly at Tanner. And if you fail that, well, let's just say leaving them behind isn't the only price you'll be paying. It will have dire consequences. The weight of the mission settles heavily on the room that it's not just about rescuing hostages. It's about preventing a global catastrophe. The stakes are higher than they've ever been. The room falls silent once more, the only sound the hum of the warehouse lights. Tanner examines the photographs again, his expression unreadable. He knows this is a suicide mission, but he also knows he can't walk away. Too much is at stake. Not just for the hostages, but for the world. He looks at his team, sees the apprehension in their eyes, but also the unwavering loyalty that he knows he can count on them. He turns back to Hayes, his voice calm and resolute. Tell us everything, he says. Everything you know about Kasser, his operation, and those hostages. That we'll need every advantage we can get. Hours blur into a focused frenzy of activity. The warehouse transforms into a war room. Maps are plastered on the walls, drone footage loops on screens, and tactical schematics fill every available surface. Tanner, fueled by coffee and an almost preternatural focus, pores over every detail, dissecting Kasser's operation with surgical precision. Chloe, her fingers flying across the keyboard, works to penetrate Kasser's security systems. His digital footprint is surprisingly clean, she reports, her brow furrowed in concentration. He's either incredibly careful or has someone very good covering his tracks. She pulls up a schematic of the compound. The perimeter is heavily guarded, multiple layers of security, motion sensors, thermal imaging, pressure plates, classic kill zone setup. Marcus studies the structural blueprints. Reinforced concrete, steel plating, built like a bunker. Getting in won't be the problem. Getting out with the hostages will be a nightmare. He points to a ventilation shaft on the plans. This might be our best bet for a discreet entry, but it's going to be tight, and we'll need to disable the security cameras along the way. Ben analyzes aerial photographs of the surrounding terrain. The only approach is through the mountain pass. It's a natural choke point. Kasser will have it heavily guarded. He circles a spot on the map. There's a small village nearby. Could be a potential source of intel, but also a risk that Kasser's likely got eyes and ears everywhere. Tanner listens intently, absorbing every piece of information, piecing together the puzzle that he knows that success hinges on meticulous planning and flawless execution. He points to a section of the compound on the map. The hostages are being held in the central block. Reinforced cells, minimal access points that will need a diversion to draw the guards away. Sarah, ever the pragmatist, voices her concerns. Kasser's forces outnumber us 10-1. That we're going in blind, with limited intel, and we don't know the exact location of Dr. Thorne's lab. This is a high-risk operation, even by our standards. Tanner acknowledges her concerns with a nod. I know the odds are stacked against us, but we don't have a choice. These people need our help, and we're the only ones who can get them out. He turns to each member of his team, his gaze unwavering. Marcus, you're in charge of demolitions. Create a diversion that'll shake Kasser's forces to their core. Chloe, you're our eyes and ears. Disable the security systems and provide us with real-time intel. Ben, you're on Overwatch. Provide sniper support and cover our retreat. Sarah, you're with me. That will secure the hostages and get them to the extraction point. He pauses, his voice hardening. This is going to be a long, hard fight. There will be casualties, but we stick together, we watch each other's backs, and we bring everyone home. Is that understood? A chorus of affirmations fills the room. Despite the fear and uncertainty, their resolve is unwavering. They're a team, a family, bound together by a shared sense of purpose and a willingness to risk everything for each other. Tanner looks at them, a flicker of pride in his eyes that he knows that whatever challenges lie ahead, they'll face them together. They are ready. Now they just have to survive. The roar of the helicopter blades cuts through the night as Tanner's team approaches the insertion point. The landscape below is a tapestry of jagged mountains and dense forests. Shrouded in darkness, they're flying low, skirting the radar, relying on Chloe's tech skills to jam any potential detection systems. The tension inside the helicopter is palpable, a mix of adrenaline and apprehension. Each member is lost in their own thoughts, running through their assignments, mentally preparing for the chaos that awaits. The helicopter touches down in a secluded clearing, the pilot barely giving them time to disembark before lifting off again, disappearing back into the night. They're on their own now. The team moves quickly and efficiently, securing the perimeter, weapons drawn, scanning for any signs of enemy presence. The air is thick with the smell of damp earth and the distant sound of gunfire, a constant reminder of the danger that surrounds them. Chloe, status report. Tanner says, his voice low and authoritative. All clear so far. Chloe replies, her eyes glued to her tablet. No immediate threats detected, but I'm picking up increased activity near the mountain pass. Caster's expecting something. Marcus, set up the diversion. Tanner orders. Give them something to worry about. Marcus grins, a flash of white teeth in the darkness. With pleasure. He and Ben move off, disappearing into the undergrowth. Tanner, Sarah, and Chloe continue to advance towards the compound, moving with practiced stealth. Utilizing the terrain to their advantage as they approach the mountain pass, they encounter their first obstacle, a patrol of Caster's soldiers, heavily armed and alert. They're moving slowly, scanning the surroundings, clearly expecting trouble. Tanner signals his team to take cover. We can't risk a firefight, Sarah whispers. Not this close to the compound. We need to take them out silently. Tanner nods in agreement that he assesses the situation, calculating the angles, the distances, the potential risks. That he points to two of the soldiers. Sarah, you take the one on the left. I'll take the one on the right. Chloe, you provide cover. They move with precision and deadly efficiency. Sarah silently dispatches her target with a swift knife strike to the neck. Tanner takes down his with a garrote, choking him into unconsciousness. Chloe covers their flanks, ensuring no one sees them. They quickly dispose of the bodies, concealing them in the undergrowth. Let's move, Tanner says, his voice urgent. We're on a clock. As they continue their advance, they trigger a tripwire, setting off a series of flares that illuminate the night sky. The compound erupts in chaos. Alarms blare, spotlights sweep across the landscape, and the sound of gunfire intensifies. They know we're here, Chloe says, her voice tight with concern. The element of surprise is gone. Tanner grits his teeth. It doesn't matter. We adapt. We overcome. That's what we do. He looks at his team, his eyes filled with determination. Let's show them what we're made of. The mission has officially begun, and it starts with a bang. The flares die down, leaving an eerie orange glow in the air, but the chaos remains. Gunfire erupts from all directions, tracers slicing through the darkness. Caster's forces are swarming, converging on their position. Tanner's team is caught in a crossfire, pinned down behind a cluster of rocks. Chloe, give me eyes on Marcus and Ben. Tanner yells over the din of battle. They're in position, Chloe replies, her voice strained. But they're pinned down too. Caster's moved reinforcements to the mountain pass. Damn it. Tanner curses under his breath. Their carefully laid plans are unraveling. They need to adapt, and fast. We can't stay here, Sarah says, firing a burst of rounds at an approaching enemy soldier. We'll be sitting ducks. We need to move to the tree line. Tanner nods in agreement. Chloe, provide cover fire. Sarah, with me. We'll create a diversion. They burst from behind the rocks, unleashing a hail of gunfire, suppressing the enemy advance. Tanner leads the charge, moving with a speed and ferocity that belies his age. He's a whirlwind of motion, a force of nature, taking down enemies with brutal efficiency. Sarah provides cover, her aim precise and deadly. They reach the tree line, diving for cover behind the thick trunks of the trees. The gunfire continues to rain down around them, but they're in a slightly better position now. Marcus, Ben, what's your status? Tanner asks, his voice tight with urgency. We're pinned down, Tanner. Marcus replies, his voice crackling over the comms. We can't get the explosives into position that we need a distraction. Tanner grits his teeth. He knows what he has to do. He turns to Sarah. We're going to draw their fire. Give Marcus and Ben a chance to move. Sarah looks at him, her eyes filled with concern. That's suicide, Tanner. Maybe, Tanner replies, a grim smile on his face. But it's the only way to give them a chance. Cover me. He steps out from behind the tree line. Exposing himself to the enemy fire, he unleashes a deafening barrage of gunfire, drawing the attention of Castor's forces. They turn their full attention on him, pouring bullets in his direction. Tanner moves like a ghost, dodging and weaving, using the terrain to his advantage. He's a master of evasion, a seasoned warrior who knows how to survive against impossible odds. But even he can't dodge every bullet that a round slams into his shoulder, sending a searing pain through his body. He stumbles, but manages to stay on his feet. He grits his teeth, ignoring the pain, and continues to fire, drawing the enemy further away from Marcus and Ben. Marcus, Ben, move now. Tanner yells over the comms. That's your window. He hears a faint explosion in the distance, followed by a series of louder blasts. Marcus and Ben have succeeded. The diversion has been set. But Tanner is in trouble. That he's wounded, outnumbered, and surrounded. He knows he can't hold out much longer. He looks at Sarah, his eyes filled with a mixture of pain and determination. Get out of here, Sarah, he says, his voice barely a whisper. Get to the compound. Rescue the hostages. That's the mission. Sarah shakes her head, her eyes filled with tears. I'm not leaving you, Tanner. You have to, Tanner says, his voice firm. It's the only way to save them. Now go. He turns back to face the enemy, ready to fight to the death. He's a warrior, a survivor, a man who will never give up. Even in the face of certain defeat, Sarah hesitates, torn between her loyalty to Tanner and the mission. But she knows he's right. The hostages' lives depend on her. With a final, tearful glance at Tanner, she turns and disappears into the darkness, leaving him to face his fate. Chloe, still providing overwatch, watches Sarah go, her heart heavy with grief and fear. She knows that Tanner's sacrifice has bought them a chance, but the odds are still stacked against them. As Sarah moves towards the compound, she encounters a hidden path, barely visible in the darkness. It's a treacherous route, winding through dense vegetation and rocky terrain, but it offers a chance to bypass the main defenses. She moves cautiously, her senses on high alert, knowing that any mistake could be her last. She reaches a small village, nestled in a valley below the compound, but it's a cluster of dilapidated huts, inhabited by a handful of villagers who live in fear of Castor and his men. Sarah knows that they could be a source of information, but she also knows that they could be spies for the warlord. She approaches a wizened old woman, her face etched with wrinkles that tell a story of hardship and suffering. I need your help, Sarah says, her voice low and urgent. I'm trying to rescue the hostages from Castor's compound. The old woman looks at her with suspicion. Why should I help you? She asks, her voice raspy. Castor will kill us all if he finds out. I know the risks, Sarah replies. But I also know that you want to be free from Castor's tyranny. I can help you, but I need your information. The old woman hesitates, then nods slowly. I know a secret passage into the compound, she says. It's an old smuggler's tunnel, used long before Castor came. But it's dangerous. It's filled with traps and guarded by his men. I can handle it, Sarah says, her voice resolute. But I need to know where it is. The old woman leads her to a hidden entrance, concealed behind a waterfall on the outskirts of the village. Be careful, she says. Castor's men are always watching, and don't trust anyone. Even those who seem to be helping you may be working for him. Sarah thanks the old woman and disappears into the tunnel. The air inside is damp and musty, filled with the stench of decay. She moves slowly, her flashlight illuminating the darkness, searching for traps and enemies. As she navigates the treacherous tunnel, she encounters a group of Castor's soldiers, guarding a narrow passage. They're heavily armed and alert, expecting trouble. Sarah knows that she can't avoid a fight. She engages them in a fierce firefight, using her skills and training to take them down one by one. She's a force to be reckoned with, a warrior who will stop at nothing to complete her mission. After a grueling battle, she manages to eliminate the guards and continue her advance. She's wounded and exhausted, but her determination remains unwavering. She knows that she's getting closer to the hostages, and she won't let anything stop her from rescuing them. But as she reaches the end of the tunnel, she discovers a shocking truth. The tunnel doesn't lead into the compound, as the old woman claimed. It leads to a hidden underground chamber, filled with strange equipment and guarded by heavily armed soldiers in unmarked uniforms. Sarah realizes that she's been betrayed. The old woman wasn't trying to help her. She was leading her into a trap. But who is she working for? And what is the purpose of this hidden chamber? The mission just got a lot more complicated. The soldiers in unmarked uniforms are unlike any Sarah has encountered before. They move with a chilling precision, their faces hidden behind tactical masks, their weapons state-of-the-art. They're not Caster's men. There's something else entirely. Who are you? Sarah demands, her weapon raised. What is this place? The soldiers remain silent, their weapons trained on her. Suddenly, a figure emerges from the shadows, a man in a pristine white lab coat. He's Dr. Eris Thorne, the bioengineering expert they were sent to rescue. But something is wrong that he's not terrified or grateful. He's calm, almost expectant. Welcome, Sarah, Thorne says, a chilling smile spreading across his face. I've been expecting you. Sarah is stunned. You're Thorne, but why are you here? What is this place? This, Thorne says, gesturing around the chamber, is my laboratory, and I am not a prisoner, I am a collaborator. Sarah's mind races. Everything she thought she knew about the mission has been turned upside down. A collaborator? With Caster? Thorne laughs, a cold, unsettling sound. Caster is a pawn, a useful idiot. He provides the resources, the security, but he has no idea what we're truly doing here. He leads Sarah further into the chamber, revealing a series of complex machines and rows of holding cells. Inside the cells, Sarah sees the hostages, but they're not the government officials and scientists she was led to believe. That they're ordinary villagers, men, women, and children, their faces etched with terror. What are you doing to these people? Sarah asks, her voice filled with horror. I am perfecting them, Thorne replies, his eyes gleaming with fanaticism. I am unlocking their hidden potential, evolving them into something more. He explains that he's using advanced gene editing techniques to enhance their physical and mental capabilities, turning them into super soldiers, loyal only to him. He plans to use them to create a new world order, a world ruled by his genetically enhanced elite. Sarah realizes the horrifying truth. The hostages aren't just victims. They're test subjects in a twisted experiment that could have catastrophic consequences. And Caster isn't the real enemy. He's just a smokescreen, hiding a far more dangerous threat. You're insane, Sarah says, her voice trembling with rage. I have to stop you. You can't stop me, Thorne replies, his voice cold and dismissive. I am too close to achieving my goal. And besides, he adds, gesturing to the soldiers, you're outnumbered. He orders the soldiers to attack, and Sarah finds herself in a desperate fight for her life. That she's outgunned and outmatched. But she refuses to give up. She knows that the fate of the world depends on her. As she fights, she notices something strange about the soldiers. They're incredibly strong and fast, but they move with a jerky, unnatural gait. And their eyes are vacant, devoid of emotion. Sarah realizes that Thorne has already begun his experiments. These soldiers are his first creations, his prototypes, and they're terrifyingly effective. She manages to take down a few of them, but she's quickly overwhelmed. They swarm her, pinning her to the ground, their faces emotionless, their grip unyielding. Thorne approaches her, a syringe in his hand. It's time for you to join my army, Sarah, he says, his voice dripping with malice. You will be a valuable asset. Sarah struggles against her captors, but it's no use. She's helpless. At Thorne's mercy, he plunges the syringe into her arm. She knows that everything has changed. The mission isn't just about rescuing hostages anymore. It's about stopping a madman from unleashing a nightmare upon the world. And she may be too late. Back at the Treeline, Tanner, battered and bleeding, refuses to succumb. He uses a makeshift tourniquet to staunch the flow of blood from his shoulder wound. He knows he's on his own. But he can't give up. Not while Sarah is still out there. Not while there's still a chance to stop Thorne. That he manages to contact Chloe, his voice weak and strained. Chloe, Sarah's been captured. he says. Thorn is not a hostage, he's the one running the show, that he's conducting genetic experiments on the villagers, but it's worse than we thought. Chloe is stunned by the news. What can I do, Tanner? She asks, her voice filled with despair. I need you to find Sarah, Tanner replies. Track her signaled, she's been injected with something. I don't know what it is, but it can't be good. And Chloe, he adds, his voice hardening. If you find her, don't engage. Just get her out of there. The mission is compromised. We need to regroup. Chloe nods, her fingers flying across the keyboard. I'm on it, Tanner. But what about you? You need medical attention. I'll be fine, Tanner says, his voice dismissive. Just find Sarah. He knows he's lying, he's losing blood fast, and he's surrounded by enemies. But he can't afford to think about himself. He has to focus on saving Sarah. Meanwhile, Marcus and Ben, having successfully set the diversion, are trying to reach Tanner's position, but they're cut off by a large contingent of Caster's soldiers. They're engaged in a fierce firefight, outnumbered but not outmatched. We need to reach Tanner, Marcus yells over the din of battle. He's in trouble. I know, Ben replies, his voice grim. But we can't get through, they've got us pinned down. Suddenly, Ben is struck by a sniper bullet, collapsing to the ground. Marcus rushes to his side, his heart pounding with fear. Ben, can you hear me? He asks, his voice trembling. Ben opens his eyes, his face contorted with pain. Go on without me, Marcus, he whispers. Save Tanner, that's what matters. Marcus hesitates, torn between his loyalty to Ben and his duty to Tanner. But he knows that Ben is right, he can't save him. But he can still save Tanner. With a heavy heart, Marcus leaves Ben behind, continuing his advance towards Tanner's position. He's alone now, but his resolve is unwavering. He'll do whatever it takes to save his friend. As he fights his way through the enemy lines, he receives a message from Chloe. Marcus, I found Sarah, she says, her voice urgent. She's in a hidden underground chamber beneath the compound, but she's been captured by Thorn. That he's planning to use her for his experiments. Marcus is enraged by the news. He knows that he has to reach Sarah, but he's still miles away from the compound, and he's running out of time. That he makes a difficult decision. That he changes his course, abandoning his attempt to reach Tanner and heading straight for the compound. That he knows that he's risking everything, but he can't let Thorn harm Sarah. She's like a sister to him. That he charges into the compound, a one-man army, determined to rescue Sarah and stop Thorn, even if it costs him his life. The mission has taken a dark and unexpected turn, and the price of failure has never been higher. Despite his injuries and the overwhelming odds, Tanner refuses to give up. He knows he can't reach the compound in time to help Marcus and Sarah, but he can still create a diversion, drawing Caster's forces away from the underground chamber and giving them a fighting chance. That he studies the terrain, analyzing the enemy positions, searching for a weakness, an opportunity. He notices that Caster's men are heavily concentrated around the main gate and the perimeter walls, leaving the western flank relatively unguarded. It's a long shot, but it's the only chance he has. He contacts Chloe, his voice raspy but determined. Chloe, I need your help, he says. I'm going to create a diversion on the western flank. Can you disable the security cameras in that area? I'm on it, Tanner, Chloe replies, her fingers flying across the keyboard. But it's going to take time. Caster's security system is heavily encrypted. Just do what you can, Tanner says. I'm running out of time. He prepares for his assault, scavenging weapons and ammunition from fallen soldiers. He's a one-man army, armed with nothing but his skills, his determination, and a burning desire to save his team. But as Chloe works to disable the security cameras, Tanner moves into position, utilizing the terrain to his advantage. He's a master of stealth, moving silently through the shadows, avoiding detection. That he reaches the western flank and finds a weak point in the perimeter fence. That he uses a pair of wire cutters to create an opening, slipping through undetected. He's now inside the compound, surrounded by enemies. He moves quickly, silently, taking down guards with brutal efficiency. He's a whirlwind of motion, a force of nature, leaving a trail of unconscious bodies in his wake. Chloe manages to disable a few of the security cameras, creating blind spots in Caster's surveillance system. Tanner uses these blind spots to his advantage, moving undetected through the compound. That he reaches the main power generator, the heart of Caster's operation. He knows that if he can disable the generator, He can plunge the compound into darkness, creating chaos and confusion that he uses his demolitions expertise to plant a series of explosives on the generator. He sets the timer and moves away, taking cover behind a nearby building. The explosives detonate with a deafening roar, sending shrapnel flying in all directions. The generator explodes, plunging the compound into darkness. Alarms blare, chaos erupts, and Castor's forces are thrown into disarray. Tanner has succeeded. He's created the diversion he needed, drawing Castor's forces away from the underground chamber and giving Marcus and Sarah a chance to escape. But he's also painted a target on his back that Castor's men are swarming, searching for him. Their weapons drawn, he's outnumbered, outgunned, and wounded. But he's not afraid. He's ready to face whatever comes his way. That he's a warrior, a survivor, a man who will never give up. That he engages Castor's men in a fierce firefight, using his skills and training to take them down one by one. He's a force to be reckoned with, a one-man army, fighting against impossible odds. As he fights, he receives a message from Marcus. "Tanner, we're inside the underground chamber," Marcus says, his voice urgent. "We're fighting Thorne's men. It's a bloodbath. Just get Sarah out of there," Tanner replies, his voice strained. That's all that matters. He knows that Marcus and Sarah are facing a deadly threat, but he has faith in them. That he knows that they can handle themselves. He just needs to buy them enough time to escape. He continues to fight, drawing Castor's forces away from the underground chamber, giving Marcus and Sarah a chance to complete their mission. He's a true hero, sacrificing everything for his team. Inside the underground chamber, Marcus finds Sarah strapped to a table, Thorne preparing to administer another injection. Thorne's enhanced soldiers are a formidable force, their unnatural strength and speed making them difficult to combat. "Get away from her, Thorne," Marcus roars, unleashing a hail of gunfire. Thorne's soldiers move to intercept, engaging Marcus in a brutal firefight. Marcus fights with a ferocity born of desperation, taking down the enhanced soldiers with well-aimed shots and brutal hand-to-hand combat. He reaches Sarah and quickly frees her from the table. "Are you okay?" he asks, his voice filled with concern. Sarah is weak and disoriented, but she manages to nod. "I'll be all right. We have to stop Thorne." They join forces, fighting back-to-back against Thorne's remaining soldiers. Marcus uses his demolitions expertise to create improvised explosives, blasting the enhanced soldiers with concussive force. Sarah, despite her weakened state, fights with a fierce determination, utilizing her skills and training to take down the enemy. They manage to clear a path to Thorne, who is watching the battle with a detached amusement. "You can't stop me," he says, his voice cold and dismissive. "My vision is too important. The future of humanity depends on it." "Your vision is twisted," Marcus replies, his voice filled with rage. "You're a monster." He lunges at Thorne, engaging him in a brutal hand-to-hand combat. Thorne is surprisingly strong and agile, his movements enhanced by his own experiments. They exchange blows, each strike carrying the force of a sledgehammer. Marcus is battered and bruised, but he refuses to give up. That he knows that he has to stop Thorne, no matter the cost. Sarah, recovering from the effects of the injection, joins the fight, attacking Thorne from behind. She manages to land a blow to his head, stunning him. Momentarily, Marcus seizes the opportunity, unleashing a flurry of punches and kicks, overwhelming Thorne. That he knocks him to the ground, pinning him beneath his weight. "It's over, Thorne," Marcus says, his voice filled with triumph. "You're finished." But Thorne is not defeated. He pulls out a syringe, filled with a potent version of his genetic serum that he attempts to inject himself, to become the ultimate super soldier. Sarah reacts quickly, kicking the syringe out of his hand. The syringe shatters on the floor, spilling its contents. Thorne is enraged that he lunges at Sarah, attempting to strangle her. Marcus pulls him off, throwing him against a wall. Thorne collapses to the ground, unconscious. The threat is finally over. Marcus and Sarah gather the remaining hostages, leading them out of the underground chamber and into the chaos of the compound. They have to escape before Castor's forces regroup. They fight their way through hordes of enemies, protecting the hostages while trying to reach the extraction point. They're outnumbered, outgunned, and exhausted, but their determination remains unwavering. They reach the perimeter fence, where they find Tanner, battered and bleeding, Holding off a large contingent of Kasser's soldiers, he's a one-man army, fighting against impossible odds. Tanner, Marcus yells, relief flooding his face. We're here. We've got the hostages. Tanner grins, a flash of white teeth in the darkness. Get them out of here, he says, his voice strained. I'll cover your retreat. Marcus and Sarah lead the hostages through the opening in the fence, escaping the compound. They know that Tanner is risking everything to save them. They can only hope that he makes it out alive. As Marcus and Sarah lead the hostages through the breach in the perimeter fence, Kasser arrives, his face contorted with rage. He surveys the scene of devastation, his eyes landing on Tanner, who is still holding off his men. You, Kasser roars, his voice filled with hatred. You will pay for this. He orders his men to focus their fire on Tanner, but Tanner is too quick, too skilled that he dodges the bullets, weaving through the chaos, taking down enemies with deadly precision. Kasser, frustrated and enraged, pushes his way through his men, determined to confront Tanner himself. He's a formidable opponent, a hulking figure with years of combat experience that he reaches Tanner, engaging him in a brutal hand-to-hand combat. They exchange blows, each strike carrying the force of a sledgehammer. Tanner is wounded and exhausted, but he refuses to back down. That he knows that he has to stop Kasser, not just for himself, but for his team, for the hostages, for everyone who has been affected by Kasser's tyranny. They fight with a ferocity born of desperation, their skills and training. Drawing on years of experience and a primal will to survive, that he dodges Kasser's wild swings, countering with precise strikes to his pressure points. He uses Kasser's size and strength against him, leveraging his weight to throw him off balance. The fight is a brutal dance of violence, a testament to the resilience of the human spirit. Tanner is battered and bleeding, his body screaming in pain, but he refuses to yield. That he knows that if he falls, Kasser will hunt down his team and the hostages. Ensuring their demise, he manages to gain the upper hand, landing a series of devastating blows that stagger Kasser. He finishes the fight with a final, bone-crushing strike to Kasser's throat, silencing the warlord forever. With Kasser defeated, Tanner stumbles towards the breach in the perimeter fence, joining Marcus, Sarah, and the hostages. They're battered, exhausted, and grieving for their fallen comrade. But they're alive. They've survived the impossible. As they move towards the extraction point, they're pursued by Kasser's remaining forces, who are determined to avenge their leader's death. A final chase ensues, a desperate race against time. Chloe, monitoring their progress from afar, guides them through the treacherous terrain, avoiding enemy patrols and ambushes. She's their eyes and ears, their lifeline in the darkness. They reach the extraction point, a secluded clearing near the mountain pass. The helicopter is waiting, its blades churning, ready to whisk them away to safety. But their escape is not guaranteed. Kasser's forces are closing in, determined to stop them from leaving. A final firefight erupts, a desperate last stand. Tanner, Marcus, and Sarah fight side by side, protecting the hostages while trying to board the helicopter. They're outnumbered, outgunned, but their resolve remains unwavering. They manage to secure the hostages inside the helicopter, but they're still under heavy fire. Tanner is hit again, a bullet tearing through his leg. That he stumbles, falling to the ground. Go! Get out of here, he yells, his voice strained. I'll cover you. Marcus hesitates, unwilling to leave Tanner behind, but Tanner insists, his eyes filled with urgency. With a heavy heart, Marcus boards the helicopter, leaving Tanner to face his fate. Sarah stays with Tanner, refusing to abandon him. The helicopter lifts off, soaring into the night sky, leaving Tanner and Sarah behind. They're surrounded by enemies, their situation dire, but they're not afraid. They're warriors, survivors. Their resolve fueled by a bond stronger than blood. The helicopter disappears over the horizon, carrying Marcus and the rescued hostages to safety. Chloe, her face etched with worry, monitors their progress, guiding them towards a secure location. Back at the compound, Tanner and Sarah find themselves surrounded by Kasser's remaining forces. They know their situation is dire, but they refuse to surrender. They're warriors, survivors, and they'll fight to the bitter end. But as they prepare for their final stand, a figure emerges from the shadows. It's one of Thorne's enhanced soldiers. But something is different. He's not moving with the same jerky, unnatural gait as the others. His eyes are clear, focused, filled with intelligence. He approaches Tanner and Sarah, his weapon lowered. "I can help you," he says, his voice surprisingly calm. "Thorne's experiments, they gave me clarity that I see what he was doing was wrong, that I want to stop him." Tanner and Sarah exchange a skeptical glance. They don't know if they can trust him, but they have no other choice. The enhanced soldier leads them to a hidden escape route, a secret tunnel that leads out of the compound. They follow him, cautiously, their weapons drawn. They emerge from the tunnel into a remote valley, far from the compound. They're safe. For now. As they catch their breath, Tanner turns to the enhanced soldier. "Why did you help us?" he asks. "Because it was the right thing to do," the soldier replies. "Thorne's vision, it was based on lies and manipulation, that I want to help create a better future." Tanner nods, a flicker of hope in his eyes. He realizes that Thorne's experiments may have unintended consequences, creating individuals who can think for themselves, who can resist his control. They make their way to a nearby village, where they find refuge with the local inhabitants. They're treated with kindness and compassion, their wounds tended to, their spirits lifted. Days later, they're rescued by a team of government operatives, sent to retrieve them and the rescued hostages. They're flown back to civilization, where they're hailed as heroes. But the experience has left a lasting impact on Tanner and his team. They've witnessed the depths of human depravity, the horrors of genetic manipulation, the sacrifices required to fight for freedom. Ben is gone, a painful reminder of the cost of their mission. Sarah is struggling to cope with the trauma of her capture and the effects of Thorne's injection. Marcus is haunted by the memories of the